In a silent mansion, an elderly woman lives under the same roof as her son, but is treated as a nuisance by her cruel daughter-in-law. Behind fake smiles and rehearsed gestures, she faces daily humiliations as she tries to protect her dog and her dignity. But everything changes when her son, moved by an intuition, returns unexpectedly and witnesses the truth hidden in the shadows of his own home. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. We'll continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear in your life. The wrought iron gate opened automatically, revealing the cobblestone path that led to the main entrance. The mansion stood imposingly in the affluent Hampstead neighbourhood of London, with its light-coloured walls and wide windows reflecting the afternoon sun. To any visitor, that residence represented the pinnacle of success, the materialization of a family's dreams come true. But for Celia, those thick walls held secrets no one could fathom. She was sitting on the back porch, stroking the ears of Peanut, her small caramel-coloured mixed-breed dog who had been with her for 7 years. The dog was all that remained of her old life, of the simple house in the East End where she had raised her son Luke with so much love and sacrifice. A widow at 40, Celia had worked as a seamstress for decades, taking orders from neighbours and local shops, saving every penny to ensure Luke attended good schools, had decent clothes, and could dream of a better future than hers. And Luke had dreamed. An intelligent and dedicated boy, he graduated in business administration, pursued postgraduate studies, and built a brilliant career in the tech sector. At 38, he was a partner in a digital solutions firm that served large corporations. Success came quickly, transforming the seamstress's son into a respected businessman. Celia had always been his biggest supporter, cheering for every achievement as if it were her own victory. When Luke bought that mansion 3 years ago, Celia felt her heart swell with pride. Her son, who used to play barefoot on unpaved streets, now owned a property worthy of a magazine. But what moved her even more was the invitation he extended, his eyes shining with sincerity. "Mother, this house is too big for me alone. I want you to come live with me. You gave me everything in life, now it's my turn to take care of you." Celia accepted with gratitude, selling the small house in the East End and moving in with Peanut and her few belongings. The first few months were wonderful. Luke worked a lot, travelled constantly, but always made time to have lunch with his mother on Sundays, watch soap operas with her in the evening, and talk about everything. The house was spacious, comfortable, and Celia felt happy taking care of the details, preparing her son's favourite meals, keeping everything organised. Then, a year ago, Luke met Marcella. Their first meeting happened at a corporate event. Marcella Thompson was a public relations executive for a marketing agency, beautiful like a runway model, with her sleek dark hair falling perfectly over her shoulders, flawless tanned skin, a smile that lit up any room. She came from a traditional family from Oxford, had attended expensive private schools, and spoke 3 languages. When Luke brought her home for dinner for the first time, Celia was impressed by the young woman's elegance, her refined manners, and her engaging conversation. Marcella was attentive at that first meeting, praising Celia's cooking, asking questions about her life, showing genuine interest. In the following months, she remained charming. She brought flowers for her mother-in-law, inquired about her health, and sat in the kitchen to chat while Celia prepared dinner. Luke was in love, and Celia, seeing her son's happiness, blessed the relationship with an open heart. The wedding took place 8 months later, a discreet but elegant ceremony in a luxury banquet hall in the South End. Celia cried tears of emotion seeing her son at the altar, so handsome in his navy blue suit, his eyes fixed on Marcella, who walked down the aisle like a dream apparition in her mermaid-style white gown. The party was perfect. Guests praised everything, and when Luke hugged Celia on the dance floor, whispering that she would always be the most important woman in his life, his mother felt that nothing could be more complete. Marcella moved into the mansion a week after their honeymoon in Barbados. Initially, she maintained the same cordiality, sharing tasks with Celia, delicately suggesting changes in decor, and including her mother-in-law in decisions. But Celia began to notice small changes, a different look when Luke wasn't around. Slightly drier tone of voice when asking for something. Subtle comments about how nice it would be if the house had more privacy. The changes intensified when Marcella officially assumed the role of lady of the house. She started by redecorating the living room, then the master bedroom, then hired a new cleaning company. Each alteration was presented to Luke as a necessary improvement, an inevitable modernization. And he, confident in his wife and always absent due to business trips, agreed to everything. Celia was gradually pushed into the corners. Her room, which was upstairs with a view of the garden, was suggested as being better utilized if it were converted into an office. Marcella argued that Celia would be more comfortable in the smaller room on the ground floor, next to the kitchen, more practical for a woman of her age. Luke, not understanding the implications, found it reasonable. Celia moved without complaining, not wanting to cause problems. But it was after this move that everything worsened. One afternoon, 3 months after the wedding, Celia was in the kitchen preparing a cornmeal cake, a recipe Luke had loved since childhood. Marcella entered, wearing an expensive yoga set, her hair tied in an impeccable bun. She observed Celia for a moment before speaking, her tone too casual to be natural. "Celia, we need to talk about some things." Her mother-in-law turned, wiping her hands on her apron. "Of course, dear. What is it?" Marcella approached, leaning on the marble countertop. "Look, I understand you're used to taking care of this house, but now I'm responsible for everything. Luke works too much to worry about domestic details, and I prefer to have control over how things work here." Celia blinked, confused. "But I was just making a cake for Luke." "Yes. And that's kind of you," Marcella replied, her smile not reaching her eyes. "But it would be better if you focused on resting, enjoying your age. You don't need to worry about these things." "But I like to cook, I've always done it." Marcella sighed, as if explaining something obvious to a stubborn child. "Celia, you've already done so much for Luke. You raised him, educated him, fulfilled your role as a mother. Now he has a wife to take care of him. It's natural for things to change." Celia felt a tightness in her chest but swallowed the words. That threatened to come out. She didn't want to create conflict, didn't want to be the kind of mother-in-law who caused problems in her son's marriage. She just nodded, finishing the cake in silence as Marcella left the kitchen with light steps, satisfied. In the following days, Celia noticed that her presence was starting to bother. When she watched television in the living room, Marcella would appear with friends for tea, and Celia felt obliged to withdraw. When she sat in the garden in the morning, Marcella would schedule yoga sessions there, forcing her mother-in-law to find another place. Gradually, Celia retreated to her small room on the ground floor, leaving only for quick meals or brief walks with Peanut. Luke noticed the change in his mother's behavior during a dinner. "Mother, are you all right? You seem quieter lately." Celia forced a smile. "I'm great, son. Just a little tired." Marcella quickly intervened, touching her husband's arm. "Your mother is relaxing, love. Finally enjoying some rest after so much work. Aren't you, Celia?" Marcella's eyes met her mother-in-law's, and there was something there that made Celia nod automatically. "Yes, that's right." Luke seemed relieved. "That's good, Mother. You deserve it." But inside, Celia felt that something was profoundly wrong. The house that should have been a home was transforming into something else, something she couldn't yet fully name, but which was already starting to steal her sleep and make her heart clench every time she heard Marcella's footsteps approaching. Peanut, lying at her feet on the porch, raised his head and growled softly, his eyes fixed on the living room window where Marcella was talking on the phone. The dog had always been docile, but lately he had been agitated as if sensing a threatening presence that humans had, not yet fully identified. Celia stroked the animal's head. "Calm down, my friend, everything is fine." But she knew she was lying. Things were not fine. And the worst was the growing feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger, much more painful than she could imagine. The London winter arrived, bringing cold mornings and cloudy skies. Celia woke earlier and earlier, even before the sun rose, enjoying the silence of the house to feel minimally free. She sat in the small wooden chair in her room, Peanut curled up at her feet, and watched the still dark garden through the window. These were the only moments she didn't feel the weight of Marcella's watchful gaze. The house routine had completely changed. Marcella had hired a new maid, Rosalind, a young woman from Yorkshire who desperately needed the job to support her small daughter. Rosalind arrived at 7 in the morning and worked until 5 in the afternoon, taking care of cleaning, meals, and general organization. She was efficient and quiet, but Celia noticed in her eyes a mixture of compassion and fear every time their gazes met. The most significant change happened on a rainy June morning. Celia was in the kitchen preparing coffee when Marcella appeared, already dressed in elegant business attire, her makeup impeccable even at that hour. "Celia, I need to talk to you," Marcella began, her voice firm. "From today on, Rosalind will take care of all the household tasks. I don't want you to worry about anything else." "But I can help," Celia timidly protested. "I don't mind." "It's not a matter of bothering," Marcella cut in. "It's a matter of organization. A house needs order, and order requires everyone to know their place." The meaning of the words hung in the air like toxic smoke. Celia understood the message perfectly. Her place in that house was no longer as an active part of the family, but as a tolerated, almost invisible presence. "I understand," she murmured, feeling tears threaten to well up. "Excellent," Marcella smiled, a smile that carried no warmth at all. "I knew you would understand." In the following days, Celia tried to adapt to the new reality. She stayed in her room most of the time, reading the old books she had brought from the East End house, or watching the small television Luke had installed there. She only went out for short walks with Peanut in the garden, always at times when she knew Marcella wouldn't be around. Luke had travelled to Edinburgh for 2 weeks to close an important contract. Before leaving, he had kissed his mother's forehead, promising that upon his return they would take a day to have lunch out together, just the two of them, like old times. Celia clung to that promise like a castaway to a piece of wood, counting the days until her son's return. But it was during Luke's absence that Marcella showed her true colours. It was a cloudy afternoon when Rosalind knocked on Celia's bedroom door. The maid seemed nervous, her hands trembling slightly. "Mrs. Celia, could you come with me, please?" Celia stood up, concerned by the young woman's tone of voice. "What happened, Rosalind?" "The mistress wants to speak with you in the laundry room." The laundry room was at the back of the house, a spacious room with a state-of-the-art washer and dryer, a marble sink, and shelves organized with expensive cleaning products. When Celia entered, she found Marcella standing next to a large plastic basin full of clothes, her hands on her hips. "Sit down," Marcella ordered, pointing to a low stool. Celia obeyed, confused. "Marcella, what's going on?" Her daughter-in-law walked towards her, her high heels echoing on the cold floor. "Celia, I've been thinking a lot about your situation here. You don't do anything all day, you just eat our food, use our water, our electricity. That doesn't seem fair to me." Celia felt her face flush with shame. "I can help. I've already said I can." "Glad you think so," Marcella smiled, but it was a cruel smile. "Because I have a task for you, these clothes here," she pointed, to the basin, "need to be washed by hand." Celia looked at the basin, then at the brand-new washing machine next to it. "But isn't the machine working?" "It's working perfectly, but I want you to wash them by hand. Consider it a way to contribute to the house." "Marcella, I have arthritis in my hands. The cold water hurts me." "Then use warm water," Marcella retorted indifferently, "and be quick. I want everything washed and hung out by the end of the afternoon." Celia looked at Rosalind, who was standing at the door with downcast eyes, clearly uncomfortable but unable to intervene. She understood at that moment that she was completely alone. With trembling hands, she began to wash the clothes. The water was icy, and every movement sent waves of pain through her swollen joints. Marcella remained there for a few minutes, watching with satisfaction before leaving. That was just the first day. In the following weeks, while Luke remained traveling or immersed in endless meetings, Marcella established a routine of carefully calculated humiliations, always when no one else was around, always with words that left invisible but deep marks. Celia was woken up in the middle of the night to wash dishes that could easily go into the machine. She was sent to clean the same rooms repeatedly, even when they were spotless. When she complained about the pain in her hands, Marcella smiled, and suggested that younger people wouldn't have that problem, implying that Celia was a burden, an obsolete presence in that modern house. The worst were the veiled threats. One day, while Celia was folding clothes in the laundry room, her hands bleeding from the effort, Peanut at her feet, Marcella appeared holding a cup of coffee. "You know, Celia," she began in a casual voice, "Luke trusts me a lot. He believes everything I say. If I told him you've been very confused, forgetting things, acting strangely, he would be worried. Maybe he'd think you need special care, an appropriate place for the elderly. You understand?" Celia froze, her hand still on the clothes. "Are you threatening me?" "Don't be dramatic," Marcella laughed. "I'm just being practical. You have a place to live, food to eat, comfort. Many people your age aren't that lucky. It would be a shame to lose all that for pride, don't you think? And poor Peanut, where would he end up?" The dog, as if understanding they were talking about him, growled softly. Marcella looked at the animal with disdain. "That animal is also a problem. It makes the house dirty, barks too much. But for now, I'll tolerate it. For now." The message was clear. If Celia dared to complain to Luke, not only she but also Peanut would suffer the consequences. And Marcella was right about one thing. Luke trusted his wife blindly. He saw in her the perfect woman, intelligent, caring, modern. If Marcella planted doubts about Celia's mental health, her son would probably believe her. Rosalind witnessed several of these scenes. One afternoon, when Marcella left for an appointment, the maid approached Celia with a glass of water and a damp cloth for her injured hands. "Mrs. Celia, this isn't right. You should tell Dr. Luke." Celia shook her head, tears finally falling. "I can't, Rosalind. He won't believe me. And if I try, Marcella will do something worse." "But you can't go on like this." "I can and I will," Celia replied with sad resignation. "At least I have a roof over my head, and as long as I'm here, my Peanut is safe." Rosalind wanted to argue more, but at that moment they heard the sound of high heels in the hallway. Marcella was returning. The maid quickly moved away, pretending to arrange the shelves. Marcella entered the laundry room and observed the scene with sharp eyes. "Rosalind, I need you in the living room now." The maid left hurriedly. Marcella approached Celia, bending down until she was at eye level. "If I find out this maid is meddling where she wasn't called, she's out on the street. And it will be your fault, Celia, one more person who will suffer because of you. Can you live with that on your conscience?" Celia didn't answer. She just continued washing the clothes, her tears mixing with the cold water in the sink. That night, alone in her small room, Celia hugged Peanut and cried until she had no more tears. She looked at the simple phone Luke had given her, thinking of calling him, of telling him everything. But Marcella's words echoed in her mind. Her son was so happy, so proud of his perfect wife. Would he be able to believe his mother? Or would he think she was exaggerating, becoming senile, inventing things? And if she told him and Luke didn't believe her, what would Marcella do next? How much worse could the revenge be? Celia fell asleep without answers, only with the growing certainty that she was trapped in a hopeless situation. The house that should have been her refuge had turned into her personal prison, and the bars were invisible, but absolutely real. Luke finally returned from his travels in early August. He arrived on a Friday night, exhausted but smiling, bringing gifts for his wife and his mother. For Marcella, a pearl necklace he had bought at a jewelry store in Edinburgh. For Celia, a soft wool shawl in shades of blue. "Mother, I brought this thinking about the cold here," he said, wrapping the fabric around her shoulders. "You're thinner. Aren't you eating properly?" Celia forced a smile, aware of Marcella's attentive gaze from across the room. "I am, son. It's just old age." Marcella approached, intertwining her arm with Luke's. "Your mother has been eating very little, love. I've tried to encourage her, but you know how it is, don't you? Elderly people sometimes lose their appetite." Luke frowned, worried. "Mother, promise me you'll take better care of yourself." "I promise," Celia murmured, feeling the knot in her throat tighten. That night, Luke insisted on a family dinner in the formal dining room, something that hadn't happened in months. Rosalind prepared a feast, roasted sirloin cap, toasted cassava flour, vinaigrette, and fluffy white rice. Celia sat at the table trying to appear natural, but her hands ached so much that she could barely hold the cutlery properly. Luke noticed. "Mother, are your hands okay? They look swollen." Before Celia could answer, Marcella intervened with a worried voice. "It's the arthritis, love. I've been insisting she go to the doctor, but you're stubborn, aren't you, Celia?" Celia swallowed hard. "It's true, I am stubborn." "On Monday I'll make an appointment for you," Luke decided. "I won't take no for an answer." "That's good," Marcella agreed, smiling. "I was really worried about your mother. She's been so reclusive lately, staying in her room all the time. I try to call her out, to talk, but she prefers to be alone." Luke looked at his mother with that look Celia knew so well, a mixture of love and concern. "Mother, if you're feeling sad or lonely, you can tell me." "I'm fine, son. Marcella is right. Sometimes I prefer to stay in my corner. Old age thing." "Don't talk like that," Luke asked, gently squeezing his mother's hand. "You're not old, and this will always be your home." Marcella smiled sweetly, but Celia caught the icy glint in her eyes. The implicit message was clear. "See what a good actress I am. See how your son believes every word I say." In the following days, Luke worked from home, catching up on paperwork and resting from his travel marathon. His presence completely altered the dynamic. Marcella transformed into the perfect wife, affectionate, attentive, solicitous with her mother-in-law. She brought tea for Celia, asked if she needed anything, suggested walks in the garden together. "Celia, come see the roses I planted," Marcella called when Luke was nearby. "They're beautiful, I think you'll like them." And Celia went, playing her part in that theatrical play, pretending that everything was harmony and family love. Luke watched the two talking about flowers and smiled contentedly, happy to see his wife and his mother getting along so well. But as soon as Luke left for a meeting or took a call in the office, Marcella's mask dropped. One afternoon, when Luke left to deal with bank matters, Marcella found Celia in the garden, Peanut chasing a butterfly. Her daughter-in-law approached with slow, calculated steps. "Enjoying your time off, Celia? Enjoy it while it lasts. When Luke starts traveling again, we'll go back to our normal routine." Celia didn't answer, just continued watching the dog play. "You know what impresses me most?" Marcella continued, sitting on the bench next to her mother-in-law. "It's how weak you are. Pathetic, actually. You have a son who loves you. You could tell him everything. But you don't. Do you know why? Because deep down you know he wouldn't believe you, and that destroys you, doesn't it?" "Please," Celia whispered, her voice breaking. "Please, stop." "Stop what? With the truth?" Marcella chuckled softly. "You're a burden in this house, Celia. A relic from the past that insists on not disappearing. Luke keeps you here out of obligation, out of pity. But I'm the one in charge now, and the sooner you accept that, the better it will be for everyone." Peanut started barking at Marcella, his fur bristling. The woman looked at the animal with contempt. "Shut that thing up," she ordered. Celia called the dog, who came running and jumped into her lap, still growling at Marcella. Her daughter-in-law stood up, smoothing her skirt. "You and that ridiculous animal deserve each other. Two useless creatures." Marcella walked away, leaving Celia clutching Peanut, silent tears wetting the animal's fur. That night, Luke noticed something strange during dinner. His mother was particularly quiet, picking at her food without really eating. Marcella, on the contrary, was radiant, telling funny stories from an event she had attended, making Luke laugh. "Mother, you barely touched your food," Luke observed. Celia looked up. "I'm not very hungry, son, but you need to eat. You're so thin." Marcella stood up and served more food onto Celia's plate. "Come on, dear mother-in-law. You need to eat properly. I made sure Rosalind prepared your favorite dishes today." Luke smiled at his wife. "You're so attentive to my mother, love. I'm a lucky man." Celia watched the scene, feeling a mixture of sadness and helplessness. How could she explain to her son that this attentive woman was just an illusion, that the reality was completely different when he wasn't present? Would she be able to destroy his happiness with the truth? And more importantly, would she be able to do it knowing that he might not believe her? After dinner, Luke asked his mother to accompany him to the porch. He wanted to talk alone. "Mother, I'm worried about you. You seem sad." "I'm not sad, son. Just a little tired." Luke held his mother's hands, noticing the poorly healed wounds. "Mother, what happened to your hands?" Celia felt panic rise. "Oh, that. It's the arthritis. And sometimes I hurt myself without realizing it." "Are you sure they look like wounds from heavy work?" Celia forced a laugh. "Son, you know me. Sometimes I insist on washing a few things, doing some chores. I can't just sit around all day. Marcella said you spend a lot of time in your room, alone. Because I like to read, to watch television quietly. There's nothing wrong with that." Luke studied his mother's face for a long moment. Celia prayed he wouldn't notice the lies, the fear behind her tired eyes. "If something is wrong, you can tell me. Always, Mother. You can always count on me." "I know, son, but everything is fine, really." Luke hugged her, and Celia allowed herself that moment of affection, wishing she could freeze time there in the safety of her son's arms. But when they went back inside, Marcella was at the top of the stairs, watching. And in her eyes was a silent promise that that conversation would have consequences. The next morning, Luke announced he would have to travel again, this time to Manchester. He would be away for 4 days. Celia felt her stomach sink. Marcella said goodbye to her husband with a prolonged kiss. "Come back soon, love. I'll take very good care of everything here." "I know you will," Luke replied, "and take care of my mother too." "As if she were my own mother," Marcella promised, casting a quick glance at Celia that said exactly the opposite. As soon as Luke's car disappeared through the gate, Marcella's expression changed completely. She turned to Celia with a cruel smile. "You tried to report me yesterday, didn't you? Little chat on the porch, showing off your little injured hands. Did you think he was going to save you?" "I didn't try anything. Liar. But it didn't work, did it? He still trusts me. And now you're going to pay for that pathetic attempt." Marcella advanced and Celia instinctively retreated. Her daughter-in-law stopped inches from her, her voice a venomous whisper. "The next few days are going to be interesting, Celia. Very interesting. We'll see how much humiliation you can take before you finally give up and leave this house of your own accord. Because that's what you'll do, in the end. You'll leave. And you'll leave Luke to me, without guilt, without regret, thinking it was your decision." Celia trembled but tried to maintain her dignity. "I will never abandon my son." Marcella laughed, a joyless sound. "We'll see, mother-in-law, we'll see." And with those words, the silent war that had been fought in the hidden corners of that mansion was about to intensify in ways Celia had never imagined possible. The next 4 days were the worst of Celia's life since she had moved into that house. Marcella not only maintained the routine of humiliations, but intensified it with meticulously calculated cruelty. On the first night after Luke's departure, Celia was woken up at 3 in the morning. Marcella was standing at her bedroom door, a cold expression on her face illuminated only by the hallway light. "Get up," she ordered. "You have work to do." Celia, still groggy with sleep, staggered out of bed. "Marcella, it's 3 in the morning. What's going on?" "What's going on is that you have a house to clean. The kitchen is a mess after the dinner I had for my friends. I want everything spotless by dawn. But Rosalind can do that tomorrow. Rosalind has the day off tomorrow, and even if she didn't, you're the one who's going to do it. Now." Celia went downstairs, holding the banister, her legs weak, her body aching. The kitchen was indeed in disarray, dirty dishes piled up, wine-stained glasses, food scraps scattered. But there was something intentional about that mess, as if it had been created specifically for her to clean. With trembling hands, she began to wash the dishes. The cold water made her joints scream with pain. Peanut was by her side, looking at her with concern, not understanding why his owner was there at that hour. Marcella returned an hour later, wearing a silk robe. "Still not finished?" "I'm almost done." "Too fast. I don't think you're doing it right. You'll have to redo it." And with a sudden movement, Marcella knocked half of the clean dishes back into the sink. Celia looked at her, shocked. "Why did you do that?" "Because I can. Because this is my house and you are nobody here. Now wash everything again, and this time do it right." Celia felt something break inside her. It wasn't anger, it wasn't revolt, but a sadness so deep that it seemed bottomless. With silent tears streaming down her face, she went back to washing the dishes. When she finished, it was already 5 in the morning. Celia dragged herself back to her room and collapsed onto the bed, exhausted. But an hour later, Marcella was knocking on the door again. "Get up, the garden needs to be swept." "Marcella, please, I just want to sleep a little. And I want the garden clean. Choose, do what I'm telling you, or Peanut sleeps outside tonight, with rain forecast." Celia immediately got up. "No, please. I'll do it. Leave him alone." During the day, Rosalind arrived for work and found Celia in the garden, sweeping leaves with slow, painful movements. The maid ran to her. "Mrs. Celia, what are you doing? Let me do that." "You can't, Rosalind. Marcella told me to do it. But this isn't right. You can barely stand." Celia held the maid's arm. "Rosalind, don't get involved. She'll fire you, and you need this job." Rosalind had tears in her eyes. "But I can't bear to see you like this." "Bear it, please. For me." The maid reluctantly moved away, returning to her tasks inside the house. But she watched through the window, her heart aching at the injustice of the situation. In the afternoon, when Celia finally thought she could rest, Marcella appeared with a new task. The laundry room, clothes that needed to be hand-washed, heavy curtains that needed scrubbing. Celia obeyed, her hands bleeding, her body begging for rest. It was during that afternoon that the incident that would change everything happened. Celia was kneeling on the laundry room floor, scrubbing a curtain in the sink, when she felt intense dizziness. She tried to support herself, but her legs gave way. She fell to the wet floor, hitting her knee hard. Peanut began to bark desperately. Marcella entered the laundry room, attracted by the noise. She looked at Celia on the floor, wet and injured, and smiled. "How dramatic, Celia." "Get up." "I can't," Celia groaned. "Please help me." "Help? Do you think I'm going to help? Get up yourself, or stay there. I don't care." And Marcella left, closing the door and leaving Celia on the cold floor. The elderly woman stayed there for almost an hour, Peanut licking her face, trying to comfort her somehow. When she finally managed to get up, leaning on the sink, her clothes were soaked, and she was trembling with cold. She dragged herself to her room and changed her clothes with difficulty. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman she saw there. In a few months she had aged decades. Her eyes were sunken, her skin pale, her expression defeated. She picked up her simple phone with trembling hands and looked at Luke's photo on the lock screen. Her beautiful son, smiling, happy. How could she destroy that happiness by telling him the truth? And if she told him and he didn't believe her? Would she be able to bear the rejection of the only son she had? While Celia struggled with these thoughts, across town, Luke was in his meeting in Manchester when a strange feeling hit him. An inexplicable intuition, a tightness in his chest that made no sense. He looked at his phone and saw a photo of his mother he used as wallpaper. Something was wrong. He felt it. "Excuse me," he said to his meeting colleagues. "I need to make an urgent call." He left the room and called home. Marcella answered on the third ring, her voice sweet as honey. "Love, what a pleasant surprise. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. I just wanted to know how things are there." "Everything's great. Your mother is resting in her room. Today she walked in. The garden ate well at lunch. Everything's calm." "Can I talk to her?" There was an almost imperceptible pause. "She's sleeping now, love. You know how it is. Elderly people need a lot of rest. I don't want to wake her." Luke hesitated. "Right. When she wakes up, can you ask her to call me?" "Of course, love. But don't worry. Everything's under control here." "Thanks for taking care of her, Marcella. She's my mother-in-law, isn't she? It's the least I can do." When they hung up, Marcella looked at her phone with a satisfied smile. She went upstairs and knocked on Celia's bedroom door. "Your son called. He wanted to talk to you, but I said you were sleeping. He believed it, of course. He always believes." Celia, sitting on the bed with Peanut in her lap, just looked at her daughter-in-law with empty eyes. "You know what that proves, Celia, that I'll always be one step ahead. You'll never be able to tell him the truth. I'll always prevent it." That night, Celia could barely sleep. Her body ached so much that every movement was agony. But worse than the physical pain was the despair she felt growing inside her. She was trapped in a nightmare with no apparent way out. The next day, Marcella came up with a new demand. She wanted Celia to organize the attic, a dusty space full of heavy boxes and old furniture. The attic stairs were steep, and Celia was afraid to climb them. "I can't, Marcella, I'm afraid of falling." "Then fall. I don't care." "Please," Celia begged, something she swore she'd never do. "Please have a little compassion." Marcella approached, her face inches from Celia's. "Compassion? You want compassion? You know what I want. I want you out of this house. I want Luke all to myself, without this pathetic presence always in the corners, reminding me that he had a life before me. You are a ghost from his past, and I want you to disappear." Celia recoiled, frightened by the intensity of the hatred in Marcella's eyes. "But since you're so stubborn, you insist on staying. So I'm going to make your life so miserable that you'll want to leave yourself. And when you do, you'll leave a nice little letter saying you decided to live somewhere else, that you want independence. Luke will be sad for a few days, but I'll comfort him. And in a few weeks he'll even feel relieved. Without his mother around, we can truly live our lives. Is that your victory? Making an old woman suffer? It's not about you, Celia. It never was. It's about having what's mine. And Luke is mine." Marcella left, leaving Celia in shock. The extent of that woman's madness finally became clear. It wasn't just casual cruelty. It was a deliberate plan to drive her out of the house. But Celia also realized something important at that moment. Marcella was getting impatient. She was making mistakes, revealing too much, being too cruel. In her arrogance, she was leaving traces. And perhaps, just perhaps, there was a way to make Luke see the truth without having to tell him directly. It was a small chance, but it was all Celia had, and she was determined not to give up without a fight. Luke couldn't concentrate on his meetings in Manchester. That strange feeling he had felt 2 days ago wouldn't leave him. It was as if something was pulling him back to London, an inexplicable urgency that made no rational sense but which he couldn't ignore. On the third night, after another call home where Marcella assured him that everything was perfect, Luke made a decision. He took out his phone and rescheduled his final meeting for the following week. He would surprise Marcella, returning a day earlier than planned. He booked a flight for the next morning and on Thursday afternoon quietly entered the house. He wanted to surprise his wife, perhaps prepare a romantic dinner. But as soon as he walked through the door, he felt something strange in the air. The house was too silent, but it wasn't a peaceful silence. It was heavy, laden. Marcella wasn't in the living room or the kitchen. Luke went upstairs to the bedroom, but his wife wasn't there either. That's when he heard a sound coming from the back of the house, a muffled sob, followed by Peanut's desperate bark. He walked towards the laundry room, his heart racing without understanding why. When he opened the door, the scene he saw froze him in place. His mother was kneeling on the wet floor, her hands submerged in a basin of icy water, scrubbing clothes with slow, painful movements. Her back was hunched and she was silently crying. Peanut was by her side, barking and trying to get her attention, as if begging her to stop. Celia's hands were visibly injured, bleeding in some spots. There was a purple bruise on her knee, and her clothes were soaked. "Mother?" Luke's voice came out almost as a whisper, too shocked to shout. Celia turned abruptly, her eyes wide with terror. "Luke, you shouldn't be here. You came back early. What's going on here? Why are you washing clothes like this, with your hands in this state?" Before Celia could answer, Marcella appeared at the door, her eyes slightly wide when she saw her husband. But she quickly composed herself, forcing a smile. "Love, what a wonderful surprise. I didn't know you'd be back today." Luke didn't take his eyes off his mother. "Marcella, why is my mother kneeling on the floor washing clothes with injured hands?" Marcella sighed, approaching and touching her husband's arm. "Your mother is very stubborn, Luke. I've already explained to her that she doesn't need to do these things, that we have a washing machine, that Rosalind takes care of everything. But she insists. She says she needs to feel useful. I've tried to talk to her, but you know your mother. Luke looked from his wife to his mother. Mother, is this true? Celia opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked at Marcella, saw the veiled threat in her eyes, and felt all the fear of the past weeks paralyzing her. I just wanted to help, she murmured, her voice almost inaudible. But Luke was no longer the same distracted man as before. Something about that scene didn't make sense. His mother's terribly injured hands, the bruise on her knee, the terror in her eyes when he appeared, the desperate dog. And his mother wasn't looking at him. She was looking at Marcella. Mother, get up, please. Luke helped Celia to her feet, noticing how she trembled, how she had difficulty standing. Her body was cold, her clothes soaked. Marcella, why are my mother's clothes wet? She must have lost her balance, Marcella quickly replied. As I said, she insists on doing these unnecessary tasks even when she's not able to. Luke grabbed a towel and wrapped it around his mother's shoulders. Mother, go change your clothes, we'll talk later. Celia left hurriedly, Peanut running after her. Luke turned to Marcella, and she saw something different in his eyes. Distrust. Marcella, I need to understand what's going on here. I've already explained, love. Your mother is stubborn. I try to take care of her, but she doesn't accept help. Then why didn't you tell me she was in this state? Her hands are ruined. How did this happen? Arthritis, Marcella replied, and she hurts herself doing these unnecessary tasks. Luke shook his head slowly. Something doesn't make sense. My mother was terrified when she saw me. Why? Terrified? Marcella laughed, but the sound was forced. Luke, I think you're exaggerating. She just got scared because you showed up by surprise. No, that was fear, Marcella, real fear. Marcella's mask began to crack. Luke, you're tired from the trip. You're seeing things that don't exist. I'm seeing my mother ruined in a few months. I'm seeing something very wrong in this house. Marcella tried to hug him, but Luke pushed her away. She felt panic growing. Love, your mother is getting old. It's hard for me to see it happening too. I'm doing the best I can to take care of her. Luke didn't answer. He left the laundry room and went up to his mother's room. He knocked gently on the door. Mother, can I come in? Celia had changed her clothes but still trembled. Yes. Luke entered and sat on the bed beside her. He gently held her hands, examining the wounds. Mother, what is really going on here? Celia closed her eyes. Tears began to fall. Son, I don't want to cause problems in your marriage. Forget my marriage for a moment. I want to know about you. Please, Mother, trust me. And then, for the first time in months, Celia felt that perhaps, just perhaps, she could tell the truth. But before she could begin, they heard hurried footsteps in the hallway. Marcella entered without knocking, her eyes shining with barely contained rage. Luke, can we talk? Alone? Not now, Marcella. Now, she insisted, her voice harder. Luke realized his wife was losing control. He stood up and went out with her into the hallway, closing his mother's bedroom door. What is it? What is it? Marcella repeated, her voice rising. You're interrogating me as if I were a criminal. I'm taking care of your mother in the best possible way, and you act as if I'm doing something wrong. You're keeping something from me. I'm not keeping anything. Your mother is confused, Luke. Sometimes elderly people get like that. They do senseless things and then don't remember. My mother is not confused. She's afraid. Afraid? Of what? Luke looked into his wife's eyes. Of you. Marcella turned pale. How dare you? After everything I do for her, for this house, for you. How dare you accuse me like that? I'm not accusing. I'm observing. And I don't like what I see. Marcella changed tactics. She started crying, covering her face with her hands. Luke, this is so unfair. I work so hard to keep this house running, to take care of everyone, and you come home and treat me like this. Maybe the problem isn't me, but you, who are never here, who leaves everything on my shoulders. Luke felt a pang of guilt, but something inside him resisted. Marcella, I'm going to stay home for the next few days. I'm going to observe how things really work here." Marcella's face hardened for a fraction of a second before she recomposed her hurt expression. "Do what you want. I'm going to my room. When you decide to trust your wife again, let me know." She went upstairs dramatically. Luke stood in the hallway, his head spinning. He went back to his mother's room and found her still sitting on the bed, Peanut lying at her feet. "Mother, I need you to be honest with me. Completely honest. What has Marcella been doing to you?" Celia looked at her own hands, then at her son, and for the first time in months, she allowed herself to begin telling the truth. "Son, it all started a few months ago. At first they were small things, comments, glances, but then it got worse. She makes me work, humiliates me, threatens me. Threatens with what? With putting me out on the street, and with doing something to Peanut if I told you. She says you would never believe me, that you trust her and not your confused, senile mother." Luke felt anger swell within him. "Mother, why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I was afraid. Afraid that you really wouldn't believe me. Afraid of losing you. You seemed so happy with her." "Mother, nothing is worth more than your safety and dignity, nothing. And now I see that I failed you. I should have noticed, I should have been more present." Celia held her son's face. "It wasn't your fault, my love. You work so hard, you're always tired. She's very good at deceiving. But she won't deceive anyone anymore. I'll fix this, Mother. I promise." That night, Luke didn't sleep in the room he shared with Marcella. He stayed in the office, thinking, planning. He needed to be absolutely sure before acting. His mother wouldn't lie to him, but Marcella was intelligent, manipulative. He needed concrete evidence. Luke woke up before dawn on the office sofa. His mind hadn't stopped working all night, analyzing every detail of the past months. His mother's subtle behavioral changes, her weight loss, her always injured hands which he had attributed to arthritis, the way she retreated to her room, avoiding common areas. All the signs were there, and he, blinded by trust in his wife and distracted by work, hadn't seen them. He decided that day he would discover the full truth. He prepared carefully, dressed normally, and went down to the kitchen where Marcella was already, drinking her coffee with a distant expression. "Good morning," he said, keeping his tone neutral. "Good morning," she replied coldly. "Are you still angry with me?" "I'm not angry, just confused." Marcella sighed dramatically. "Luke, your mother is getting old. It's hard for me to see it happening too. Sometimes she does things that don't make sense, and I try to protect her. Maybe I'm too harsh sometimes, but it's because I worry." Luke took a sip of coffee, observing her. "I'm going to work from home today. I need to catch up on some reports." Marcella seemed slightly bothered, but nodded. "Of course, I'm going to the salon later. I have an appointment." "Perfect." After Marcella went upstairs to get ready, Luke went to his mother's room. Celia was awake, sitting on the bed with Peanut. "Mother, today I'm going to find out the truth. I'm going to pretend I left for work, but I'll stay in the office. I need you to act normally. Can you do that?" Celia nodded, but she was worried. "Son, be careful. She's dangerous when she feels threatened." "I'll be careful. Trust me." At 8:30, Luke picked up his briefcase and car, said goodbye to Marcella with a formal kiss on the cheek, and left. But instead of going to the office, he parked the car 2 blocks away and walked back, entering through the back door that led to the garden. He silently went up to the office on the 2nd floor, which overlooked the laundry room and part of the kitchen. Marcella left the house around 10 o'clock. Luke waited, watching. Rosalind arrived at noon, as always. The maid seemed tense, constantly looking towards Celia's room. Around 2 in the afternoon, Marcella returned from the salon, her hair impeccably styled, her nails done. Luke saw her enter and immediately go to Celia's room. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but he saw his mother recoil, an expression of fear on her face. Marcella pointed to the laundry room, then to Celia, gesturing aggressively. His mother slowly stood up and followed Marcella to the laundry room. Luke silently descended the stairs, positioning himself where he could see without being seen. What he saw made him clench his fists tightly. Marcella was standing next to a huge basin full of clothes. Celia was in front of her, and even from a distance Luke could see her hands trembling. "Take this and wash it," Marcella ordered, her voice cold and authoritarian. "And be quick. I don't want you messing around all day. Marcella, my hands are still injured. I can't. I don't care. Wash them. Please, Celia begged, and Luke felt his heart break seeing his mother pleading, Please, don't make me do this today. Marcella stepped forward, bringing her face close to Celia's. You will do what I tell you. And do you know why? Because you are nothing here. You're an intruder in my house, a useless presence that I tolerate only because Luke still has some residual sentimentality. But that will end. You will leave here either willingly or because I will make your life so miserable that you will have no choice. Luke felt his blood boil in his veins. He took a step forward, ready to intervene, but forced himself to wait. He needed to hear everything. Celia began to cry silently, picking up the clothes and putting them in the sink. Her hands trembled so much that she dropped a piece on the floor. Marcella kicked the garment away. How pathetic you are, a useless, crying old woman. Luke deserves much more than a mother like you. He deserves a real family, not this shadow from the past that insists on existing. Peanut, who was at Celia's feet, began to bark at Marcella. The woman looked at the dog with pure hatred. Shut that animal up. He's just defending me, Celia whispered. Defending? Marcella laughed cruelly. From what? From someone who runs this house? That ridiculous animal should learn its place, just like you. Don't talk about Peanut like that. Or what? Marcella advanced, and Celia backed up until her back hit the sink. What are you going to do, old woman? Are you going to tell Luke? Oh, wait. You already tried, didn't you? And he didn't completely believe you, did he? Because I'm good at what I do. I'm very good. Marcella grabbed a cloth and threw it in Celia's face. Now wash these clothes, and when you're done, I want you in the attic organizing the boxes. And don't give me that story about being afraid of the stairs. Go up or the dog spends the night locked in the garage. It was at that moment that Luke could no longer restrain himself. He entered the laundry room with firm steps, his expression harder than Marcella had ever seen. Enough! Marcella turned, her face paling when she saw him. Luke, I thought I had gone to work, but I came back. And I heard everything, Marcella. Every poisonous word that came out of your mouth. Marcella tried to compose herself quickly. Luke, you don't understand. Your mother needs boundaries. She needs discipline. She can't just... Discipline, Luke shouted, making Marcella recoil. You call this discipline? Humiliating my mother, forcing her to work with injured hands, threatening her dog. I was just trying to maintain order in the house. Order. Luke approached, his eyes blazing with anger. You were torturing my mother, systematically, cruelly, every day, and you thought I would never find out. Marcella changed tactics, tears starting to fall. Luke, please, you're exaggerating. Your mother is confusing things. Elderly people sometimes distort reality. I saw with my own eyes, I heard with my own ears. Don't try to manipulate me anymore. Marcella realized she was losing control of the situation. The mask finally fell completely. You know what, Luke? Maybe you did hear, and you know what that changes. Nothing. This is still my house as much as yours. I am your wife, and if you take the side of this useless old woman against me, you'll lose much more than you imagine. Luke was silent for a moment, processing the threat. Then, in a calm but firm voice, he replied, I choose my mother. I will always choose my mother. She gave me life, raised me alone, sacrificed everything for me. And you? You have shown yourself to be a cruel, manipulative, and despicable person. I want you out of my house. Marcella laughed, a humorless sound. Leave? I'm your wife, Luke. You can't just send me away. I can and I am. Pack your bags and go. If I leave, I'll take half of everything, and I'll tell everyone that you chose your mommy over your wife. They'll see you as the weak man you are. Let them think what they want. My conscience is clear. Is yours? Marcella looked from Luke to Celia, who was leaning against the sink, crying silently with relief. Her daughter-in-law pointed an accusing finger at her mother-in-law. This is your fault, you miserable old woman. You destroyed my marriage. No, Luke interrupted, placing himself between Marcella and his mother. You destroyed your own marriage when you decided to be cruel to the person I love most in the world. Now get out of my sight before I call the police. Marcella saw that she was defeated. With one last look of pure hatred at Celia, she stormed out of the laundry room. Luke heard her going upstairs, probably to the bedroom. He turned to his mother and hugged her tightly. "I'm so sorry, Mother. I'm so sorry I didn't realize, for letting this happen." Celia cried on her son's shoulder, years of pain finally finding release. "It wasn't your fault, son, it wasn't." "It was, but I'm going to fix everything now, I promise." Rosalind appeared at the laundry room door, tears in her eyes. "Dr. Luke, I tried to help Mrs. Celia, but she said I would lose my job." Luke turned to her. "Rosalind, you're not losing any job. Thank you for standing by my mother even at risk. That means a lot." At that moment, they heard the sound of suitcases being dragged upstairs. Marcella was indeed packing. Half an hour later, she came downstairs with 2 large suitcases and an expression of absolute coldness. She stopped in front of Luke. "You will regret this, Luke, deeply. The only thing I regret is not having discovered your true nature sooner." Marcella looked at Celia one last time. "Enjoy your victory, Celia, but know that it's not over, not by a long shot." And with those threatening words, Marcella left the mansion, slamming the door shut. The sound echoed through the house like distant thunder, marking the end of a painful chapter, but also the beginning of something new. The first few days after Marcella's departure were strange. The mansion seemed larger, quieter, but it was a different silence. No longer oppressive, but peaceful. Celia still woke up startled sometimes, expecting to hear Marcella's heels in the hallway, the cold orders, the veiled threats. But she found only the birdsong in the garden and the gentle sun entering through the window. Luke cancelled all his appointments for 2 weeks. He wanted to be present, he wanted to rebuild his relationship with his mother, to prove that from then on it would be different. He hired a private doctor who came to the house to examine Celia. Her hands were severely injured, with signs of repetitive strain and inadequate care. The doctor prescribed ointments, anti-inflammatories, and recommended physical therapy. "Mother, I'll take care of everything," Luke promised, gently applying the ointment to her hands. "You'll never go through anything like this again. Never." Celia smiled, but there was still a shadow of concern in her eyes. "Son, what if Marcella comes back? What if she tries to do something?" Luke had thought about that. The day after Marcella left, he did something he had been planning since he discovered the truth. He called his trusted lawyer, Dr. Henry Maxwell, an experienced man who had dealt with property matters for decades. "Henry, I need your urgent help." The two met in the mansion's office that afternoon. Luke explained everything that had happened, every detail of Marcella's cruelty, every moment of humiliation his mother had suffered. Henry listened attentively, taking notes. "Luke, I understand your concern. The first thing we need to do is ensure your mother's assets are protected. Does she have any property in her name?" "She has the old house she sold when she came to live with me. The money is in a savings account. We need to legally shield that. I'll prepare documents that ensure nothing belonging to your mother can be touched by third parties. Additionally, I'll draft a new will for you, clearly specifying her inheritance and ensuring Marcella has no access to anything." "Is that possible? Even though she's my wife? As long as there's no official divorce, technically she has rights to assets acquired during the marriage, but your mother's assets are untouchable. And we can structure your own assets so that, in case of separation, the division is fair but does not harm your mother in any way." Luke nodded, determined. "Do whatever is necessary, Henry. I want my mother completely protected." In the following days, Luke and Dr. Henry worked intensely. They prepared documents, updated deeds, created legal protections. Celia, initially reluctant to get involved in legal matters, was convinced by her son that it was necessary. "Mother, it's not distrust. It's protection. Marcella showed she's capable of anything. I need to ensure you're safe." While the legal issues were being resolved, Luke also took care of his mother's emotional recovery. He took her for walks in the park, dinners at restaurants she loved, cinema afternoons. Gradually, Celia began to smile genuinely again. Colour returned to her face and the sparkle to her eyes. Rosalind continued working in the house, but Now the dynamic was completely different. She and Celia developed a sincere friendship. They had tea together in the afternoon, talked about their lives, laughed at old stories. The maid confessed that she had almost resigned several times during Marcella's time, but had only stayed because she didn't want to abandon Celia. "Mrs. Celia became like a mother to me," Rosalind confessed one afternoon. "Seeing her suffer like that broke my heart. But I didn't know what to do. I needed the job for my daughter." "You did what you could, Rosalind. And now, we're all well." But the peace of those days was interrupted 2 weeks later, when Luke received a call from Dr. Henry. "Luke, we need to talk. Urgently." When they met, the lawyer had a serious expression. "Marcella filed for separation. And that's not all. She's claiming half of everything, including this house." Luke felt the anger return. "Is that possible?" "Technically, yes. The house was acquired during the marriage, but I have something that can change things. While investigating Marcella's financial history, I discovered something interesting." "What?" "She has debts, many debts, credit cards, personal loans. Apparently, her luxurious lifestyle was maintained with money she didn't have. And there's more. She lied about her financial situation before the marriage. She claimed to come from a wealthy traditional family, but in reality, she came from a middle-class family that went bankrupt years ago. It was all a facade." Luke was silent, processing. "So she married me for money." "It seems so, and that gives us legal ammunition. Marriage based on false pretenses can be annulled. Furthermore, we have the issue of ill treatment of your mother. If we can get testimonies, we can build a strong case." Luke thought of Rosalind, of the neighbors who occasionally visited, of the doctor who had examined his mother. "We have testimonies." But it was at that moment that Luke had an even better idea. He remembered something he had installed years ago in the house and then completely forgotten. "Henry, the security cameras. I installed cameras at various points in the house 3 years ago for security reasons. I never paid attention to the recordings, but they are stored in the cloud for 6 months before being deleted." The lawyer's eyes lit up. "Luke, this could be the definitive evidence we need." They rushed back to the mansion. Luke accessed the security system from his office computer. The cameras covered the living room, the kitchen, the hallways, and yes, the laundry room. They began to review the recordings from the past few weeks. What they saw horrified them. Hours and hours of Marcella humiliating Celia, forcing her to work, threatening her. Everything was there, recorded in high-definition video. Henry took a deep breath. "With this, she doesn't stand a chance. Not only will she lose any rights to your assets, but she could be prosecuted for ill treatment." Luke felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief at having definitive proof, sadness at seeing all his mother's suffering confirmed. "Use all of it, Henry. I want her to pay for what she did." But it was Celia who, upon learning of the recordings, made a surprising decision. "Son, I don't want to prosecute Marcella." Luke turned to her, incredulous. "Mother, she deserves it." "She does, yes. But prosecuting her, dragging this through the courts, making it public, will prolong our suffering. I want peace, Luke. I want to move on. Use the evidence to ensure she takes nothing that is yours, but then let her go. Let her carry the weight of her own conscience." Luke hugged his mother, impressed by her capacity to forgive. "All right, Mother, your way." Dr. Henry used the recordings as evidence in private negotiations with Marcella's lawyers. When she saw the videos, she realized she had no power left. She agreed to sign an agreement relinquishing any rights to Luke's assets in exchange for no criminal prosecution for ill treatment. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Marcella left Luke's life, taking nothing but her own belongings. He never heard from her again. 6 months passed. The mansion in Hampstead had completely transformed. It was no longer just the house of a successful businessman, but a true home. Celia had fully recovered. Her hands still ached occasionally, but with medical treatments and physical therapy, they were much better. One sunny spring afternoon, Luke and Celia were in the garden. Peanut ran happily after a ball, barking with joy. Rosalind was preparing a special tea in the kitchen. It was a moment of perfect peace. "Mother," Luke said, holding her hand, "I want to tell you something." "What is it, son?" "I'm thinking of slowing down my work pace, hiring more people, delegating more. I realized I spent years building professional success, but almost lost what truly matters, which is you." Celia smiled, tears of emotion in her eyes. "Son, you don't have to do that." "I do. I realized that my father, God rest his soul, worked his whole life but always made time to be with us. I lost my way, but no more." Luke then revealed something he had been planning for weeks. "And there's more. I'm thinking of transforming part of the house into a space to welcome other people. Elderly people who might be going through difficult situations, creating a support group, something like that, so that what happened to you never happens to another person without someone noticing." Celia was moved. "Luke, that's wonderful. You inspired me, Mother. Your strength, your capacity to forgive. I want something good to come out of all this suffering." And that's how, in the following months, Luke initiated a social project. Once a week, the mansion welcomed a group of elderly people from the community for conversations, teas, and activities. Celia, despite still being in emotional recovery, actively participated, sharing her story, offering support to others who were going through similar situations. Rosalind brought her small daughter, Mary Ann, to one of these meetings. The 6-year-old girl ran through the garden with Peanut, filling the house with childish laughter. Celia watched that scene with a heart overflowing with gratitude. One afternoon, almost a year after everything had happened, Luke was in his office when he received an unexpected call. It was a woman who identified herself as Sandra, Marcella's sister. "Mr. Luke, I know I have no right to call, but I need to speak with you." Luke hesitated, but his curiosity won. "I'm listening." "My sister is in psychological treatment. After everything that happened, she had a breakdown. During the sessions, she revealed a lot about our past, about how we grew up. Our parents were extremely demanding. She was never good enough. Marcella developed an obsessive need for control and success. It's no excuse for what she did to your mother, but perhaps it explains it." Luke listened in silence. Sandra continued. "She asked me to call. She wants to apologize, but understands if you don't want to speak with her. She just wanted you to know that she recognizes the harm she caused." Luke thought for a long moment. "Tell her I accept the apologies, but also tell her I never want to see her again, and that I hope she finds peace in her life, far from us." "I will tell her. Thank you for listening." When Luke told Celia about the call, she simply nodded. "It's good to know she's seeking help. Sometimes hurt people hurt other people. I hope she finds healing." His mother's ability to maintain compassion even after so much suffering constantly left Luke marveling. That night, Luke prepared a special dinner. He invited Rosalind and Mary Ann to eat with them. The table was full. The atmosphere was of a true family. "I want to make a toast," Luke announced, raising his glass. "To my mother, the strongest woman I know. To Rosalind, who showed loyalty when it was difficult. And to the family we chose to build, based on respect, love, and dignity." Everyone toasted, and at that moment, Celia looked around the table. The son she loved so much, the friend she had gained, the child who filled the house with joy, the faithful dog at her feet. All the pain, all the humiliation, all the suffering now seemed part of a distant past. Luke looked at his mother and saw something he hadn't seen in a long time. She was truly happy, not just relieved or comfortable, but profoundly happy. "Mother, what are you thinking about?" Celia smiled, her eyes shining. "I'm thinking that sometimes we need to go through the storm to appreciate the sun, and that the most important thing in this life is to know that we are not alone, that we have someone who sees us, who protects us, who loves us unconditionally. I will always see you, Mother. I will always protect you, and I will always love you. That is a promise I will never break again." And as night gently fell over London, in that mansion in Hampstead that no longer held dark secrets, a true family celebrated not just overcoming adversity, but the transformative power of love, respect, and human dignity. Dear listeners, we hope that the story of Celia and Luke has deeply touched your hearts. This narrative reminds us that true strength lies in protecting those we love, in seeing beyond appearances, and in never allowing human dignity to be violated. If this story moved you, we invite you to subscribe to our channel for more narratives that explore the complexity of family relationships and the resilience of the human spirit. Leave a like on this video and share your reflections on this story in the comments. Have you ever faced situations where you had to choose between comfort and what was right? How would you react in Luke or Celia's place? Your stories and opinions enrich our community. Every day we bring new content that celebrates strength, compassion, and the human capacity to start anew. To continue this emotional journey with us, don't forget to activate the notification bell. See you in the next story. Goodbye for now.